Hello, I'm John Bachman.
And I'm Miranda Kahn. Coming up this hour on Newsmax Now, Mike Huckabee joins the field of GOP presidential candidates on the campaign trail. And coming up, we talk with Newsmax Prime host J.D. Hayworth about his exclusive interview with another new candidate, Ben Carson.
And we'll have the latest on the claims from ISIS that they were behind the terror attack at a Texas Muhammad cartoon contest. And everybody's doing it, except for Jeb Bush. Grover Norquist joins us live with more on his still popular and controversial to some no new taxes pledge.
It's time for Newsmax Now. Thanks for joining us on this May 5th.
And let's turn our attention now to New York City. Prosecutors have now upgraded the charges against the man accused of shooting and killing a police officer over the weekend. Support continues to pour in for the loved ones of police officer Brian Moore. He died yesterday. Hundreds of police officers stood at attention while his body was carried out of a Queens hospital. The suspect in this case, Demetrius Blackwell, had already been arraigned on attempted murder charges. Prosecutors now say he will face first-degree murder charges.
The White House says it's too early to know if ISIS truly is responsible for a free speech attack in Texas. Police killed Nadir Sufi and Elton Simpson outside a cartoon drawing competition for the Prophet Muhammad. ISIS says this is the first of many attacks, but it didn't offer any evidence showing a direct link with the two men. New information reveals one of those men, Elton John, had been on the FBI's radar for quite some time. 5 years ago, the FBI took him to court. They say he wanted to join terrorists and told an informant democracy was a threat to Islam, but a judge ruled there wasn't enough evidence.
President Obama announces his pick to be the next Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman, General Joseph Dunford.
I have been extraordinarily impressed by Joe from the Situation Room, where he helped to shape our enduring commitment to Afghanistan, to my visit last year to Bagram, where I saw his leadership firsthand.
Jennifer Dunford will take over for General Martin Dempsey. Dunford served both in Iraq and Afghanistan, and he has risen rapidly through the ranks from a one-star to a four-star general, now the chairman of the Joint Chiefs in just about 3 years. Another big announcement today, as we mentioned, from Mike Huckabee. He says he's running for president again. Huckabee is the former governor of Arkansas. He snagged 8 states in the Republican primary back in 2008. The leader of the Senate is apparently still hoping for a deal that can be reached on a bill to review the Iranian nuclear agreement. Mitch McConnell was expected to cut off debate on that bill yesterday to push forward with the vote, but so far, to the surprise of some, he has not. He instead is taking more time to work out procedural votes for several amendments to the bill. Some critics call those poison pill amendments. They've been championed by Senators Marco Rubio and Tom Cotton, as well as some other conservatives. One of them would demand that Iran recognize Israel. Another would require a congressional vote on the deal itself, not just the review process. And John Kerry is now the first Secretary of State ever to visit Somalia. He made a surprise stop in Mogadishu this morning during a trip through Africa. Kerry has already met with the Somali president. He'll be meeting with several other groups around the country. Details are being kept secret still because of security reasons.
And we want to make a correction. Earlier, I was talking about those 2 men that were shot in Garland, Texas. I misspoke and called one of them Elton John. Obviously, I meant Elton Simpson. Our apologies. Moving on along, jurors in the trial of accused Colorado movie theater shooter James Holmes have been watching video of questioning by detectives.
There wasn't any children hurt.
That's Holmes asking if any children were hurt just 2 hours after the July 2012 attack. 12 people died and 70 were injured that day. His lawyers admit he was the gunman. He's pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. Excuse me. Also out of Colorado, a 14-year-old boy now faces attempted murder charges. The boy stands accused of stabbing a 14-year-old girl. It happened at Aspen Creek Elementary School near Denver last week. The victim survived the attack, but police say they're still trying to figure out why she was assaulted. A Georgia County sheriff remains tight-lipped after a shooting this weekend. Sheriff Victor Hill called 911 on Sunday, saying he'd accidentally shot a woman in the stomach, leaving her critically hurt. But when officers arrived to the scene, Hill wouldn't talk to them about it.
There were a number of items of evidence, but there was at least 2 weapons.
The shooting took place in a home about 50 miles from Clayton County, where Hill is the sheriff. No charges have been filed.
All right, a Florida woman who was tweeting about driving drunk moments before she caused a deadly accident is now facing more than 2 decades in prison. 22-year-old Kyla Mendoza pleaded guilty in February to 2 DUI manslaughter charges in the crash that killed two 21-year-old women. Mendoza posted, quote, "too drunk to care" on Twitter just minutes before that crash. Officials say her blood alcohol content was almost twice the legal limit. All right, we've been talking about it all day, just about. Looking forward to this big interview coming up, exclusive interview with J.D. Hayworth, who's joining us here now on our set, host of Newsmax Prime at 8 p.m. J.D., great to have you with us. The exclusive interview with Ben Carson. We got word that he's jumping in the race this week. What was the thing that stood out most to you about your conversation with him?
Well, the thing about Ben Carson, and let's understand for purposes of full disclosure, a lot of folks get into politics, and the vast majority of people who do so are people persons. They genuinely enjoy people, and Dr. Carson is no different. But I must tell you, I was struck by the sincere level of goodwill and the genuine nature of Dr. Carson and his wife, Candy, welcomed our crew into their home. We got a chance to sit down last week prior to the official announcement as he was making plans to make the announcement, and he is just a very genuine, very warm person.
Go ahead, Miranda.
No, I'm just, being that kind of genuine person, do you think he knows what he's in for?
I think that he is a remarkably intelligent and accomplished man. And he has had some introduction to the public arena. But there is nothing that prepares you for running like political office, like doing it. And certainly nothing like running for the presidency.
And I say that because you've said that a number of times to us, being a former congressman.
And look, I just got elected to Congress. I didn't run for president, maybe I had designs on it, but the level of scrutiny and now with social media and so many different outlets, the level of attacks that one can endure are really something.
All right, Ben Carson definitely trying not to be the candidate of yesterday, talking about future generations. Of course, this is going to be important, this election cycle. Let's listen to what he had to say just about that.
I believe there should be, because when these things were put into effect, the average age of death was 47. It was a very different time. We have not adjusted with the times. So again, that's a discussion that needs to be had. It could be that we may need a constitutional convention. We may need a convention of the states to start talking about term limits, not only for judges, but for legislators also.
All right, well, we were supposed to hear the comment about future generations, but also interesting there what he was saying about the Supreme Court justices. They're calling for term limits.
Well, calling for term limits across the judiciary. Of course, you'll recall about a quarter century ago, the first real concerted movement was made for term limits on the legislative side of things. I voted for term limits. They didn't get put into place. And of course, the joke is, at least in the electoral process, you already have term limits. It's called voting for the other candidate. And that's a way to end the term of incumbents or impose term limits. But I think in all sincerity, when you hear Dr. Carson, he is someone who will bring, I know he's a highly skilled surgeon, but dare I use the term bedside manner? I think I will. He brings a very gentle, calming, reasoned approach to this. And while at times he can say things that from someone else might seem quite incendiary, from Ben Carson, it is not the full-throated cry of a partisan warrior.
Well, I know you also talked to him about his taxation plan. We're running out of time, but real quickly, can you touch on that?
Well, it's very interesting. And just as Mike Huckabee talked about the fair tax today in announcing for president, Dr. Carson, I guess we would call it almost scriptural in nature. Dr. Carson says, what about taxing to the tithe? In other words, 10%. If the good Lord's only asking for 10%, why on earth should Uncle Sam ask for any more? He doesn't quite put it that way, but in his own thoughtful way, we discussed that as part of the interview.
Well, we look forward to seeing that. That's going to happen tonight?
That happens tonight. Newsmax Prime, in prime time, fittingly, 8 o'clock in the East and 8 o'clock Pacific time, which, of course, translates to 11 p.m. in the East. So 2 chances to watch it tonight here on Newsmax TV. We hope you'll join us for that and the rest of Newsmax Prime at 8 o'clock.
All right, JD, we'll tune in for that. All right, let's go ahead and turn our attention now. It's back, or maybe it never even really went away. Grover Norquist joins us with an update on the 2016 Tax pledge. Everybody's signing it except for Jeb. Can he win without it? We'll be back with more after this.